Hey everybody, it's Eric Meyer from Instructor Summit. Anthony and I are going to have some fun introducing some data and getting a little bit into some intermediate data, which is taking a look at the squiggly lines and say, what do I do with this? I've got the data, I know what it means. What do I do? Well, before you know what to do, you have to understand what you're looking at, and that's the purpose of this quick 30-minute video that explains just a couple things. So the foundation of understanding and learning data is represented, I believe, in 5 things. And 3 of those are represented here on the squiggly line. So this graph right here is typically referred to as squiggly lines. And you'll know that term by Chris Brown has a famous book called Squiggly Lines. So 3 of the 5 are represented right here. 60%, right? Another 20% is right here in the track map. And the last 20% I'll suggest to you is this friction circle, or sometimes called a GG plot. And we'll talk about this last. But first, let's get right in here to the squiggly lines. And I'll tell you a little bit about what you're looking at. Almost all the data that you need to know for your first year of track days or TT or racing is represented in this big graph right here, and it's the speed graph or speed trace. Use those interchangeably. What you'll notice in the speed trace are 2 things. This is called the y-axis. Y is in Yankee. I like to say it's Y in the sky, and this is the x-axis. And in almost every squiggly lines graph, this x-axis will be the distance axis, and it's usually represented in feet. Sometimes it's meters, but more often than not it's feet. So what you have here is the start-finish point at 0, which for Gingerman is right here. And then you have a slow movement or fast movement, depending on your car, all the way around the track, right? And somewhere in here is about the halfway mark, which is probably in here somewhere. We can figure that out if we looked at it a little more closely, which we will in a second. And we'll go back around here, and I want to show you something. This is a big, long straight, right? Big, long straight, followed by a braking zone and a turn, and then we're done. Okay, let's find that over here on this track map. Excuse me, on this squiggly lines right here. And I say that because a lot of people, they'll see these things and they'll go, I have no idea what this is. But what you normally do is if you look at and find the big straight on here, you can translate it over to the track, especially if it's a track you've driven. So what I see right here is slow acceleration out of a corner, right? If it's down here on the bottom, speed-wise, you're coming out of a corner, coming out of a corner, coming out of a corner, 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 right? And you're on the gas up to about 120 miles an hour, and then you're on the brake till about 50 miles an hour, and you cross the finish line. And the finish line is right here. So this corner for the big long straight is, drum roll please, right there. Does that make sense? And as you accelerate and then brake, that's accelerate, brake, and there's that corner that goes on to the front straight and the start finish. So that corner is that corner. Is this making sense? So this, one of the first things I do is equate this to a track map. So that's why I have them nice and close. Is that making sense? Little recap. Y in the sky, y-axis. In this case, it's speed. You can see that right there. All right. Speed, unit of measure is mile an hour. Right. And this right here is the x-axis, and it's in feet. And so this track is about 10,000, I don't know, what is that, 11,000 feet and change. right? Makes sense? Okay. Something else on here I want you to see is, see this little channel? It says select channels for this track attack software, which I really, really like, by the way. Everybody has a squiggly lines graph. Remember, this is the squiggly lines part. And everybody has a track map. This track attack software is really nice. It's free until you start sharing a whole lot of data. It's super easy to learn, and it's not overly capable. You start getting into some AIM race studio analysis. It's very powerful. It's often intimidating for a new person, but it's AIM software. It's very powerful. We'll be using it this weekend at M1 Concourse. Same way with Motec i2 Pro. Very powerful, a little bit intimidating for new folks. So I'll suggest to you that if you want to use your AIM data, but instead of using it on Race Studio, you want to use it on this track attack software, you can. And I'll show you about that this weekend or in another video. Okay, so here we are over here, and you can see right here are some values. And as I drag this cursor, and you're looking up here in the corner, let me change this color for you right here. That's that one, right? Let's get something more powerful. As we look right here, right, we're putting the cursor on the track. So let's look right down in here. We already talked about this braking zone in this corner, right, which is right in here, right, and right up in here. So let's relate all three of these, right? Let's, in this case, it's the corner in the corner, and I'm going to put the cursor right here, and I want you to look up here. Okay. So that's where we're at, 10,500 feet. We're at 56 miles an hour, right? Happens to show the number of satellites right there. I don't know if you can see that. 17, we got a nice big GPS signal. All right, it's making sense. Accumulated time at the moment, all right? And it says at the very end what Joe's lap is for this particular random lap. And you can see that that right here just happens to coincide with this one right here, right? Which is how he finished right here. And this part right here is the end of the lap, which is right here. Is that making sense? I'm just kind of relating these things so that everybody can see that. I'm going to pick another lap over here. I'm going to pick this one right here. I don't know if you saw that or not. I picked this one right here. This is a little different. If I toggle back and forth, you can see this part right here. It looks like there was some traffic or something. Look in the circle. See that? Different speeds. But that's what these features, this is what the software does. So again, we see this big, huge straight. We kind of know where we're at. That makes sense. I'll suggest to you that right here, what's this? Well, we know that 0 is right here. Is right here. And we know that this is a brake zone. So this has to be turn 1. So right here is right here. Let's see if we can prove that. Look at there. See that? Looking right over here on the track map right here. Look right over here on the right side of the screen. And the left side of the screen, that's where that is. Right? There's turn 2. Right? There's turn 3, etc. Makes sense. Looks like there's a lot of traffic right here. Okay, so there we go. That's speed. Speed is a product of what your feet do and what your hands do, right? How much gas and brake and how hard you turn the car and how much lateral grip that you get out of the car. So speed is a result. To say it's a result channel. Roger Cadell calls it the money channel. And because everything you do results in that and 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 that. If you go faster, everything's slightly higher, right? Because you're going, that's what higher is. So the goal is to get this graph a little bit higher if we can, that speed trace. Okay, so that's a speed trace. That's 20% of what we're going to learn for the basics, the foundations. 20%. And I would suggest that it's probably the most important channel out there when you're starting. The other thing we learned about it, this little track map, right? Tells us where we're at. Now we're going to add probably the second most important channel of the big three, and that's longitudinal. Don't get scared about this. I'm going to help you understand it. We're at Gingerman. Hopefully you know Gingerman. I'll do another one of these for M1 in Waterford Hills and Grattan and here in the very near future. But here's what you need to know. Longitudinal, every time you see that, I want you to think of your feet, as in your 2 feet. And I want you to think of this as the gas pedal, and this is the brake pedal. And there's the divider right there. Gas, brake. So all this up here, I just want you to think of on the throttle, and all this down here is on the brake. Let's relate that again, right? We're going to relate this to this. Relate longitudinal to speed. Okay, ready? Oopsie. Gas is up here, brake is down here. Sorry, I got some goofy software here. Before we get started, I want you to see that 0 line right there. And above that is gas, and below that is brake. I like to say that this is your throttle foot up here. Let me turn on the light. This is your throttle foot up here, and these are positive values. This is your brake foot, and these are negative values, or negative G's. Okay? Acceleration on the top line, braking on the bottom line, and right in the middle, we're really not doing anything. And I'm going to show you what that looks like in 1 second. Okay? So again, here's our y-axis, and here's our x-axis. So here's how you read this. We're going to go back to our friend right here, this corner right here, right? Which is this part right here. Come on, software, give me some love. Which is this part right here, right? This part right here, this part right here. And I want to just draw this little fun little line right here, from here all the way straight down to here. Right? And I want to see where we go back to gas. I'm going to go straight up right here, straight up right here. Sorry, I'm using a laptop. Look at that. See this relationship right there? Right there. So what crosses those lines right there? I'm talking all soft, like this is like a really big deal, because it is. It's right there. Sorry about my squiggly lines. Let's really get back to brakes. So what we want to say is that below, again, we're on longitudinal, which is our feet, right? We're messing around with our feet. This is gas up here, and this is brake right here. I'm sorry, this isn't the most enjoyable software to use. There we go. With a MacBook Pro, probably should use a mouse. Brake up here. So this thing right here, this is foundational, is a braking event. Goes right to here. And this thing right here looks straight below it. Looks straight below it. Is right here. Is where the speed goes down, right? Speed goes down. Come on, baby. So this thing right here is right here. Gosh darn it. It's right here. Okay, that's longitudinal. That's your feet. Okay, now we're going to jump over to the GG plot, or friction circle. Probably seen this before, represented in a perfect circle. Sometimes it looks something like this, right? This big old circle, right, with the kind of thing in it like this, and it might have one of those things, right? And that little dot's jumping all around when you're driving, right? And it's going here, right? And it's going over here. Well, that's exactly what this is, but you don't really see the circle. the center lines of the circle are right here, 0 and 0. So there's kind of a circle right here. Just pretend there is a circle right here. And what you need to know is this part right here. See this thing right here? Zeros and 0.5 and -5. You ready for this? This is a big power move. You ready? Are you sure? Are you ready? Are you ready? 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 Get rid of that color so we can see this a little bit better. That 0 is the same thing as this right here. 0 and like 0.5 is up here, and -0.5 is right here. It's the same thing. So when it's down below, right, that's braking, right, and that's above, that's on the throttle, right? You can see that right here. You can see that all the way up to right here. Right? All of this right here is accelerating, which is all this right here. Apologies, this software's bugging me. It's this right here. Which is this right here. Which is, when we go back to the friction circle, often called GG plot. This right here. So this is braking down here, or decelerating actually, and this is accelerating above the line right here, above this 0 line. Is this making sense? We'll get into this a little bit more, but from a foundational perspective, and for the exams that I do, the beginner exams I do, you need to know that all of this is positive acceleration, right? Because that's what that is right there. And this would be naked. This would be negative below the 0. So this is braking, and in this case, Joe is braking about what looks like about 1 G, right? And he's also accelerating to these values about right here, right? And that's about half a G, or 0.5 positive. Okay, is this making sense? And sometimes I like to highlight all these. So this is this just really shows you the shape. Shape kind of looks like this. We'll talk about shape in a second. All right, kind of looks kind of like heart shapey, sort of. Some people say it looks like a diamond. And it goes like this, that big old diamond ring kind of thing. So that's the friction circle. Right here, you can see this up here. It says XY plot, right? Remember how we did the XY that we were talking about? XY plot. Right, here and here. Also called the GG, as in the golf, the GG plot. Okay, we're going to have one more of these. We're 80% of the way there, 80%. If you're following along, good for you. I can't emphasize enough how you want to have these foundations down pat. You really need to. I would watch this or any other tracks that you're familiar with again and again so that you can digest this. So I'm going to do a quick little recap, and we're going to say that, right, this is our 120 miles per hour that's rated right here. What axis is this? Y-axis, right? Y in the sky. Which axis is this? G-axis. This is represented in feet, right? You can see that right there. The track being about 11,000 and change. We've got our start finish right here, which is represented start right here. It says we're going about 95 miles an hour right here when we cross. Right there. And which means we're probably about 95 miles an hour when we're right here when we come this way over the finish. Right? Come right over that way. Okay. We also know that these are braking events, and we also know that this is the biggest braking event, which looks like to be about 1 G, right? Which correlates to this bad boy, this big old back straight right into here, right? We also know that this is turn 1, right? Because it's the first brake zone from the 0 marker, right? It's the very first brake zone from the start, which is right here. So this part right here, which is about 50 miles an hour, will be where we're going here. I'm going to put the cursor right here, right? And there it is, 52 miles an hour. You can see that right here. 52 miles an hour right in there, right? This would be turn 2 at 47. We're going to go up to about 90 miles an hour, and we're going to brake down to 44 miles an hour. And what we can see right here is that this is the slowest corner on the track. That's another way we know where we're at, and we can easily see that this is way tighter than 90 degrees. If you want to do this little neat feature, and you want to zoom in to look more closely, we can see where Joe was driving. Take this with a grain of salt, because sometimes the GPS is off a little bit, and sometimes you might see the, like over here, it looks like he might be driving off the track, which he's not, obviously. Sometimes just these little lines have shifted a little bit, but for the most part, right, you can see that's where the apex is. Let's see if we can put the, look at that, pretty darn close to that. Right. Also, see, this is pretty interesting. I don't know if you see this or not. I'm going to go a little advanced on you, okay? I'm going to go a little advanced. So if this is the braking zone into 3, see this little guy right here? Kind of goes up and down. Think about that for a second. What's going up and down? What does that mean? Well, it means we're going a little faster and we're going a little slower, right? A little faster and a little slower right there, right? Well, look at this. Remember how we said that this is throttle and this is brake? That's likely a little event right there where that's happening. Where we might be pushing the throttle a little bit to get the car to turn. Maybe the rear end's coming along. I think he's got a stick axle Mustang, if I remember right. You might want to, I think he's got an IR, I can't remember. I believe it's blue. I apologize, Joe. I don't know everybody's car. I think yours is blue, though. But something's happening right here, so we'd ask him a typical question. What you doing right there? Right? That would suggest ever so slightly there's probably a little bit of a throttle and then a lift, and then he's back to full throttle, because there's a whole bunch of stuff right here, right? Which takes him down this direction. Takes him down this direction. Okay, we're getting close. The big 3 channels. This is the biggest one, speed. 80% of what you're going to do is speed. You want to look at, that's the result. This is what your feet are doing. This is the second most important one. Right here, number 1. Right here, number 2. I'm going to say this one right here is number 3. Some people get smoked on this. Don't be. If this is what your feet are doing, and this is what your hands are doing. This is your steering wheel. Lateral acceleration is lateral G's, right? Side to side movement, pushing on your shoulders, side to side, your head bobbling right to left. This is also represented in some very similar. You can see right here it's 0. You can see right here that's 0. In this particular case, here's the lateral G's, right? So when someone says their car does 0.8 G's, right, or even right here, which looks like 1 G, right, 1 G in a turn right here. Is that making sense? That's what we see here. Now, I'm going to show you a couple things, and then we're going to wrap this up. If this is the hands, right, or I guess the steering wheel, right, again, that's lat. And a lot of people are going, oh man, I don't understand this. This is turning, right? Think about turning the wheel. This is not a steering wheel sensor. This is for what you need to know for this exercise. a lateral G's and load. And I want to show you something here. Remember how we talked about that when it crosses right here, it's at the apex, and those right here are the apex. Well, look at right there. Are you starting to see these relationships right now? Let's find another one. Let's go right here. Let's go here. All right, and let's go here. It's crossing, and look at that. Let's go here. Does that make sense? You got sight, you're braking, you're rolling into the corner, you're not really accelerating, you're getting ready to accelerate, you're not accelerating or braking, and there's all of that load on your shoulder, right? On your turning right or turning left, right? Just as this value is turning right and turning left, look at this. This is the wheel is straight. We're slowly decreasing our acceleration rate, and that right here, sports fans, right? That right there is a straight, even in the brake right there, right? Even in the brake right there. Sorry, I'm having software issues. So all of this right here, really the wheel is straight. It's right here, right? Does that make sense? With accelerating and braking. What you got to do is kind of draw a line right around all this here, right? And kind of look inside that line and go, well, that makes sense. So we just did 5 things. And this is the most important. This is 50% of the whole thing. This is probably 30%. That leaves 80%. This is just a little bit. This track map is an absolute wonderful reference, and when used, you can do all kind of fun stuff with this. All right, you do all kind of fun stuff. I like doing it like that because I can see it a little better. Some people want that on. And then we learned about the friction circle, which says, what are we doing on the outside here? 1 G of steering and 1 G of steering, and it looks like 1 G of braking, right? We'll learn a little bit more about that later in the shape of this. But for the most part, this is the squiggly lines. This is your hands or steering. This is brake down here on the bottom. This is gas up here on the top. Both of these together, hands and brake and throttle, equal the result right here, which is your speed. Which is your speed, right? So there you go. There's Gingerman. There's, as we said, there's a straightaway, right? There's the braking. We put our cursor right over, let's find a neat little spot. Let's, oh, this is really good. So do you see this right here? Right here? This is that unique corner right here. Think about that for a second, right? You come in, you brake, right? You brake. You can take that first part a little faster, and then you got to slow down just a little bit, and then you get on the gas, right? And then you go to brake, and here's that really wonderful corner. If you want to know what you enter at, right here, which is over here. If you want to go to quarter entry, just go right here. It's 50 miles an hour. You ever wonder how fast you enter that quarter? 50 miles an hour. You ever wonder how fast you're going right through here when you're hauling the mail and going, oh my gosh? That's right here. Joe's going about 90 miles an hour right there. Just prior to that, 83. Right? Is this making sense? It's making sense because he's accelerating right here. See that little guy right here? He's going from here to here. Right? It's going up. And that's right here. Making sense? See this right here? It's going up. See this right here? It's going up. See it right there? And right there. There's 2 of them. 1, 2. Again, that's about 50% of what we look at, and that's probably 30. That equals 80%. I do a little bit of lateral, but for the most part, feet are the easiest things to work on. Feet, when you're at the track. Find a lot of time with feet and the brake foot, to be honest with you. One other thing I want to show you before we get off here, it's this right here. Do you see this little unique? This is on the exam as well. All this stuff, guys, are on beginner data exams that I have. What the heck is this? What the heck is this? Think about this. Longitudinal, right? That's our feet, right? That's something that we're doing with our feet, right? We know that above this line is throttle. You know, below it is braking. But what is this right here? What are these? Are those braking events? Are those braking events? A lot of people think that they are. Well, just double confirm and go right down here and look. What does this look like to you? Does that look like a braking event? It's actually a shifting event, right? The car is shifting. It's losing a momentary lack of forward acceleration, right? Which is why you see that little thing right there, right? That little doohickey right there. If this was a dual clutch transmission, this is most likely a manual transmission, this would be very tiny. It might only look like this. And this might not even be visible at all. The Porsches with the PDKs, they're beautiful transmissions. They're so fast, you don't lose that. Because remember, anything down in here this is better. This is preferred, right? Right here. We don't want this right here. We want to minimize that. We want this thing to be as nice and high, and we want this down here to be as small as possible. We don't want to be braking a lot, right? That slows us down. There you go. Gingerman, beginner data. There's an exam. If you think you have this down, I'll put a link below. But for the most part, we'll see everybody on Saturday at 8 o'clock at M1. And call me if you need to, 317-752-9358. Or send me an email at eric@instructorsummit.com. Go to motorsports.reg to get a map and directions, including a code to enter the gate at M1. And we'll see you at 8 o'clock. I'm Eric Meyer. Ciao, babe.